Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hi, I'm Ed, aka SavageTechman, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. This is episode 96, our big summer movie preview episode. So we're going to be talking about what's coming up this summer, and I'm also going to elaborate on my thoughts about Star Wars story Solo. So this may divide some fans, but I'm going to try to look at it objectively as a movie, and we'll get there in just a second. So follow along with me. And thank you, by the way. You can check out Geek Homeworld. We are on Twitter at Geek Homeworld. If you want to give us some feedback, we're on YouTube, Facebook, Geek Homeworld, and we're kind of all over the place. Another thing, I just want to make an announcement. I'm going to have a new radio show called Savannah on Film. It's going to be at www.wruu.org, 107.5 FM. And locally in my town here where I live, I'm going to be on the radio, so I'm going to have a show. It's coming on Saturdays from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., so excited about that. I've always wanted to be a radio DJ, and podcasting in a way is a foray into that. It's kind of different. It is different and all that, but in my 10th year of podcasting, it's nice to have this opportunity. So I'm going to be talking about the local film industry. So if you're listening, if you've been a long-time fan, we won't be talking necessarily about geeky things. That's where Geek Homeworld is and lives, and that's where we are going to be talking about things like that. So, you know, this is the format for that. Savannah on Film is going to talk about the film industry in Savannah, and we've got a Facebook page, Savannah on Film. So check that out. I hope you enjoy it, and you can learn a little bit of behind the scenes of what it takes to get a film made. If you're an up-and-coming filmmaker, an established filmmaker, I'll be looking for people to talk to, and it'll be broadcast live on the radio station there. So at www.wruu.org. So there's a quick plug on the podcast there. I can't plug it on the radio station, but I can plug it here. So very excited about that. So let's dive into what we're talking about today. We're talking about the summer movie preview of 2018. We've had some hits and misses, and we've got some exciting movies that are coming up. So I'm excited about a lot of what's going on. So let's look at just our top 5 for 2018, the movies, and then we'll look at the worldwide box office. So coming in at just under, it's almost hit the mark, but at around $699 million, Black Panther by Marvel. It came out in February, and it has basically ruled the entire chart. It may end up, unless the number two contender can overtake it or something else is coming out. And when I tell you who the number 2 movie of the year is so far, you'll understand why I'm saying there's a possibility it could overtake it. But at number 1 is Black Panther, and that should be no surprise to anyone, especially in the U.S., because it's been such a big film. And at number 2, just behind it, like at the recording of this, we're looking at just under that. It's about maybe 645 million, close to 650. So it's getting there, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the recording time of this. But Avengers Infinity War, so also part of that MCU universe there. A fantastic movie. Marvel could not have done Infinity War better. It's almost a perfect movie. Black Panther is almost a perfect movie, even though I'd like to see more superhero-y that's a word, hero-y stuff. So two solid movies. Coming in at number 3 already, and realize, we're only, at the recording of this, we're only in about mid-June almost. So there's a lot more movies coming out, like Fallen Kingdom is coming out, Jurassic World sequel, which we'll talk about in a second. And it may eventually be in this top 5 for the year. I kind of expect it to be, unless the movie is just terrible. And it's already opened to about 150 million in the worldwide markets, and in 2 weeks it's going to open here. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But anyway, so number 2 is Avengers Infinity War. Number 3 for the year is Deadpool 2, which I actually enjoyed every bit as much as the original Deadpool. So even though some people like the first Deadpool, this one had Cable in it. Josh Brolin is going to end up with 2 of the biggest movies of the year, being Thanos, which he brilliantly portrayed. It should have been called not Avengers, but it should have been called Thanos Infinity War, because he just pretty much steals every scene, and it's a great ensemble cast, don't get me wrong, but Josh Brolin pulled that off. I had no doubt about that. And then Cable is another character from the X-Men comics, and one of my favorite characters of all time from the comics, from the TV shows or movies or whatever. And I was wondering if Josh Brolin would do it justice, and no pun intended there, right? Justice League? Not Justice League. That's DC. But anyway, Deadpool 2, Cable pulled that off, and it's the number 3 movie of the year so far, Deadpool 2. And I was excited about the portrayal that Josh Brolin did. So he did Cable about as good as I could expect, and knocked it out of the park with Thanos. So 2 movies going to Josh Brolin. Boy, his stock has risen in my mind, so to speak. He's done a wonderful job. One of the big surprise hits of the year, and could be already one of my favorite movies of the entire year, and the year's not over. We're about halfway there. But A Quiet Place, and that was a phenomenal movie. It did buku box office, and it's, from being a professional sound mixer, I appreciate not so much the use of sound, but the use of no sound. So very interesting movie. I think that from years from now, people can point to that movie and say, that's so interesting how they did that movie and how they used sound, or did not use sound, however you want to look at it. So very interesting. Now, believe it or not, at number 5 is Solo, a Star Wars story. And that's as of when I'm recording this. So, that may change. Other movies will probably come along. Like I said, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom will probably be up there. So, but we're just looking at the top 5 as of now. So for the year. So that's your top 5. Now, if you're looking at worldwide, they're basically the same movies. There's a few of them that are swapping places. And obviously, number 1 is Avengers Infinity War. And it literally, this past weekend, is like $2 million total. $2 million for the international worldwide box office. It's literally $2 million, which is nothing, really, from breaking the $2 billion barrier. So it'll only be, I believe, the 4th movie ever. We're talking Force Awakens. We're talking Titanic. We're talking Avatar. And we'll be talking Avengers Infinity War, the 2 billion plus club. So that movie deserves it. And Black Panther's not too far behind, but it did just domestically, it did at the recording of this, because it could change, it did phenomenal. And not to take anything from Black Panther, but Avengers Infinity War, number 1 movie in the world so far for 2018. Now, number 2 is Black Panther, so they kind of swap places there, but it's not too far behind. But then we have Deadpool 2 is number 3, and that's pretty good at this point to be number 3 domestic and worldwide. And I want to apologize. I'm in a flight path here. I'm hearing C-130s and helicopters flying over. So if you hear that in the recording, I'm not sure. But that's life where I live. So anyway, we have Avengers Infinity War, number 1 worldwide. Number 2, Black Panther. Number 3, Deadpool 2. And a movie which surprised me that it fell off so quickly, a Steven Spielberg movie, but Ready Player One holds the number 4 spot. So when we're talking about Ready Player One, I love the nostalgia of that movie. I totally dug the movie. It was great in IMAX 3D. I thought it was very well done. The CGI, everything was just phenomenal. A beautiful movie. And it didn't do as well. It did okay, here in the U.S., but domestically, but it did much better worldwide or international. So for the worldwide, it falls at number 4 so far for the year. Now, here's a movie that didn't even register a blip, no pun intended, on our radar here in the U.S., but Operation Red Sea, and I believe that's a movie out of China. And forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But it's number 5 worldwide. And so that's saying a lot. It's around $1 billion or close to $1 billion or just past $1 billion. I don't know exactly. I don't have that figures in front of me, but that rounds out the top 5 worldwide as of this point. So now we're going to switch into Star Wars, and we're going to talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. And just looking, when I'm recording this, we're about roughly 17 days in, give or take. But the 17-day total going in is about 176 million for Solo. Now, that sounds like a great thing for most movies. If you break 100 million, that used to be amazing. And, well, let's compare it to Rogue One. It's 17 days. It's 17 days in. Rogue One had 424 million, basically 425 million to the 177 million that Solo, a Star Wars story, has brought in. So those are apples and apples. Those aren't apples and oranges because they're Star Wars movies, but some would argue that, they're a little bit different there. But it's been a box office bomb. It's probably going to be the least financial earning movie in the entire Star Wars pantheon of movies. And there's some reasons why. Of course, there were some sports games that were out, and I don't remember what they were in the U.S., but I guess I should know that. I think it was basketball. I'm not really a sports guy, so apologies if I've offended anyone. But there are just different things going on. But let's talk about the Solo backlash. First off, I agree there may be some Star Wars fatigue. It's the first one to really come out in the summer. And when they've been coming out with 2 years between them. So we had Last Jedi and then, roughly 8 months ago. So there may be some Star Wars fatigue. There is the Last Jedi backlash, and I think that may have buried this movie somewhat. I would like to get my friend Richard on here because he saw Star Wars Solo, a Star Wars story, and he loved it. Now, me being around a little bit longer, I'm not totally in the camp. I guess I am to an extent with the fans that did not like this movie. First off, my thoughts are that this was not a movie that the fans wanted. The fans weren't ready for a Solo movie or didn't need it. I think the mystery of Han Solo, we kind of already knew his story. And with Star Wars, you kind of know a lot of things. Like when George Lucas did the prequels, you knew eventually they were going to lead to episodes 4, 5, and 6. And then going forward, it was super exciting when The Force Awakens comes out. And, we didn't mind Rogue One. Rogue One was a small little plot hole we just had a minor question mark about. They turned into a really good movie. And some say a friend of mine, Anthony, who I've podcasted with for years, and he's not podcasting now, but great guy. And he puts Empire Strikes Back as his favorite Star Wars movie. I would agree with him on that. But he puts Rogue One at number 2, and some people would disagree. If you look online, some people have tore that movie apart. And, we got to watch it the way we treat our fandom, because essentially, if we keep this up, Star Wars is going to have such division that come episode 9, there's not going to be anything that we're going to like. I mean, one reason that George Lucas gave up Star Wars was because of the fact that the fans just wouldn't leave him alone. And now social media, people can be just so stuck in their ways, and they can be so negative sometimes about films, and you can make or break a film. And it's unfair, because Solo, a Star Wars story, Ron Howard came in, fixed what was reportedly a mess. I don't know, but things I hear through the media, that there was everything from possibly acting lessons for the lead actor as Solo. He stepped into some great shoes of Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford had that charisma where this guy didn't really tap into it. He tried to make the role his own, and that's what you want to do. But look at Donald Glover. Donald Glover, or Childish Gambino, this is America, right? But Donald Glover totally nails the idea of the character of Lando Calrissian. He just oozes that charisma, as it were, that Lando has. So Donald Glover steals this movie. They, of course, have the obligatory robot in there that actually becomes part of... I'm sorry, spoiler alert if you hadn't seen this movie, but there's a robot that dies, and Lando supposedly has affections for this robot, and going along with the story there, and then that becomes basically the mind or the whatever of the robot. He saves it, and it becomes part of the nav computers on the Millennium Falcon, which I thought was an interesting way to do that. So that robot's kind of with the Millennium Falcon, and obviously the part where Lando and Han play a card game, and Lando's being a little shady with it, like Lando is, He's just a smuggler. He's a hustler. And, Donald Glover does such a wonderful job as Lando. But anyway, so Solo beats him in his own game and wins the Millennium Falcon, and it becomes his to own from here thereafter. And later on, Rey and Chewie, I guess, have possession of it when Han dies in Force Awakens, which is still sad and all that. But I just didn't think the actor, I think he tried with that film, and the film supposedly, allegedly, has a near $300 million budget, because they basically had to reshoot almost all of the movie. They brought Ron Howard in, and Ron Howard recently just apologized, and he blamed it on, the backlash from The Last Jedi. There's a lot of people who are still upset with that movie. The Blu-ray sales are not what you'd expect for a Star Wars movie. Part of that, I think, is a lot of people don't buy Blu-rays. I haven't bought the Blu-ray. I would like to have the Blu-ray, but mostly when I buy Blu-rays, I'd rather just stream it. We're in a streaming culture now, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how things are going. So is there a Last Jedi backlash? I think so. Is the movie a little bit too close? If it came out in the December, maybe fans wouldn't be as mad. I don't know, but I never in my life thought that I'd see a Star Wars movie. Well, I never dreamed they could make so much money, but it's not about the money. But I never thought that I would see such division, I guess is what I'm saying. I would never thought that I would see such division in the Star Wars fandom. I'm still going to love Star Wars. I still enjoyed Solo, a Star Wars story, but I find a lot of problems with it. When I left the theater, I just felt, and I've only seen it once, and that says something, because I saw Last Jedi 5 times, okay? And there's been a lot of personal stuff going on, so I've not been able to go to movies in a bit. But I snuck away to see this movie, and I had to see it. I owed it, I think, to my audience here to see it and give my thoughts on it. And you can check my previous episode here, I think episode 95, where I talk about Solo, but I was just really not happy with it. Now, if it comes on TV, yeah, I'm going to watch it. If may I go? May I go? If I go to theater, or will I go to the theater again and see it? There's certainly a possibility. I enjoyed it. There were things about it. I didn't enjoy the Kessel Run. Was cool, but I kind of always picture the Kessel Run. And I think Kevin Smith said something to this fact, but I kind of always thought the Kessel Run was something like the pod racing thing. He didn't say the pod racing thing, but that's what I'm thinking of from episode 1. Not so much to compare it to pod racing, but I actually thought it was a race, and that's what Kevin Smith was saying. The Kessel Run sounds like you're racing. And, that was pretty cool. And they were in what's called the Maw, and it was good. Visually, the movie looked great. It looked great. And I really, even though Ron Howard came out and apologized for the movie, I don't feel bad for Ron Howard. I do, actually, I take that back. I misspoke there, because I do feel bad for Ron Howard, because he is a great director, and I don't want this, to really bring him down. But as much as Rian Johnson did to The Last Jedi, and I don't really want to come down on Rian Johnson, but as a long-term Star Wars fan, I didn't agree with some of the choices. I applaud him for his filmmaking, and Last Jedi was a beautiful film, but I didn't want to see Luke die like that. I needed to see Luke in action fighting Kylo, just doing some crazy kind of stuff. Like in Rogue One, we had that Darth Vader scene. I could throw the entire movie away and just start right there at that Darth Vader scene. And wow, and I'm not throwing it away. I think Rogue One was very good. It's up there with my favorite Star Wars movies of all time. But when you look at Solo, there just wasn't enough that excited me. It was a fun movie. Now, if I go see it, I didn't see it in IMAX. I saw it in 2D. So maybe if I go see it in IMAX, and I don't know if it's in 3D or not, I could probably, on a second watching, and I said this before to my friend Richard, I said that if I saw it again under different circumstances and I had time to just really, watch it, then, because the first time I watch a movie, I'm sometimes critiquing it too much, or unless I'm completely blown away. I don't know what I've seen. I have to process it. But if I go see it again, I would like to see it in a better resolution, blah, blah, blah. But the movie still looked great. So Solo, A Star Wars Story, it's, by Star Wars standards, it's bombing at the box office. There's no other way around it. If you go on the internet, you go on YouTube, there's nothing but just angry people. And I wish that Disney would listen to, and I think from what I've been reading, that they are listening to the fans. And, I did like the Darth Maul appearance in there, but had I not watched the Disney XD Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, then I wouldn't have known. If I haven't only seen the prequels and, the rest of the movies, I'm like, how in the world is Darth Maul around? That doesn't make sense. So, anywho, I just enjoyed it. I just thought it was a good movie, and I think you should go see it. But there's some people that have some violent reactions to Solo, A Star Wars Story. One thing I'd like to see is to have some way, I know they're standalone films, but I want to see like the music kind of link the Star Wars stories together, even if it's a hint of Star Wars theme in there. I know they're going with original stuff, and that's fine, but it's so weird calling it a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars story, as it were, and there not being that theme. You know what I'm saying? There has to be some kind of underlying theme, and that's fine. Now, another reason there's probably a backlash is I've been basically talking about the Solo boycott, and I think it's a real thing. I really do. I think the box office has shown that, and I think it's opened up the eyes at Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and the powers that be, that they have to pull out all stops for episode 9, which they had to do anyway. Of course, we weren't expecting Luke to die that way. Heck, Mark Hamill wasn't. He at one point said he's done with Disney, or done with Star Wars, I should say, but I know he'll be back. Bring him back as a Force ghost. I need to see that. Some of the things I need to see, and this is what the fans want, and this is just a part. But as I was thinking about it, I said the fans want an Obi-Wan movie, and now that we have Darth Maul there, it almost feels like they're setting it up for that. Now there are a lot of references. They even went into the expanded universe, which isn't canon, and they pulled some things out of there for Solo. So there are a lot of Easter eggs in Solo, and I appreciate that. And I don't know if that's Ron Howard or what. I still think Ron Howard is a great filmmaker, a great director, and I don't really want to fault him for Solo. I think he made a good movie, but it just wasn't, the movie itself, the entire thing wasn't exactly what the fans wanted. And I wish the lead actor was a little bit more Harrison Ford-like. And that's not fair to the actor. I think he's doing his best. Acting is not an easy task. It's not an easy job. So I understand that. I have a lot of actor friends, and they work very hard. And I'm not trying to dog anybody here. I don't want to do that on this podcast. But just from the feeling I have and watching, I went back and watched some of, his performances, even from Indiana Jones. You can almost look at pictures. I saw a meme on Facebook, and it just has that quirky little smile, and you see him as that scoundrel. Harrison Ford just has that charisma. He's always had that charisma. That's why he's been such a successful actor in so many franchises and so many movies that he's done. He's a great actor, and I'm not saying that the gentleman who is acting as Han Solo is not, but the movie as a whole just didn't do enough for me. It didn't service me enough as a fan of Star Wars. I wanted more. And we see things like Bosk. He's one of the, for those of you that don't know, one of the guys you see in Empire, one of the bounty hunters along with Boba Fett. And that was one of the figurines or whatever, the small little things I would play with my Star Wars toys, and I didn't have that many. I had a friend that lived down the road who had all of them, and so I was at his house a lot because I wanted to play Star Wars, man. And that's me as a kid, and that's me as an adult too. But besides the movie not being exactly what the fans wanted, the Last Jedi backlash, there are a lot of factors. Maybe there's a Star Wars fatigue, but I think fans would have wanted to see, like I said, an Obi-Wan movie, maybe Obi-Wan with Darth Maul and this is an older, reconstructed kind of Darth Maul, play out what we saw in Rebels, but make the fight scene a little bit better. Then I'm all for it. I'll go see an Obi-Wan movie in a heartbeat. And Ewan McGregor, I would love to see him reprise his role if they want to turn it into a trilogy. I'm interested in that. There was a rumor that Solo would become a trilogy, and I just don't know that it's trilogy material. But anywho, I don't know. But there's some things that I think the fans want to see. Maybe a Boba Fett movie would be interesting. It'd be nice to know why he's such the badass that he is, the best bounty hunter in the galaxy. So show us why he is, and go into some of that expanded universe Star Wars. Put some of that stuff back in canon. Knights of the Old Republic. I know that keeps coming up. They've got to do something, pull some characters out of there, and they kind of did a lot of fan service in Solo, but it just wasn't enough. I don't know. This is difficult for me, but I just wanted Solo to be so much better, and I tried to keep my expectations very low because I didn't want to go in like episode 1 and had super high expectations. And I did the same. I've been done well to do the same, even with Last Jedi and Force Awakens. Force Awakens, I enjoyed it. I don't enjoy how the Mary Jane kind of character of Rey is just so overpowered. She didn't have to go through all the struggles and trials that Luke had to go through. I think that's important for character development. That's just my opinion, but it's the opinion of a lot of people. But I don't have any problems with Rey and Kylo Ren and all that. But I wanted more. I still enjoyed Star Wars. It still felt like, okay, I'm willing to accept new people and the passing of the torch. No problem there. I wish that Carrie Fisher had lived because episode 9 was going to be her movie, so that's fine, but I don't know. I'm going on a lot of tangents. This is becoming the solo Star Wars story. What's wrong with Star Wars? But I don't know. It's anyway. So it's what it is. But a Darth Maul movie maybe would be something I would pay to see Darth Maul. We've seen it through the cartoons, but I want to see a live action, Darth Maul movie. That would be interesting. I mean, I could go on. A Darth Vader movie, I think, is probably number one in everybody's list. Basically, take Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, that book, that wonderful, wonderful book, which I don't even think is canon now, which is a shame, and do that. Do me a Darth Plagueis book, about Darth Sidious's mentor and not Jedi Master, a Sith Lord, a Sith Master, whatever. Show me that. I would love that. That's Darth Plagueis is one of my favorite Star Wars books, and it's also now not canon, but they need to change that. That would be phenomenal if they did a Darth Plagueis movie. I would watch it. Oh my gosh. And it could tie in a lot of things, like Tenebros, who was the going farther back Sith Master there, but I don't want to give too much of the book away. So if you have not read Darth Plagueis, you need to find that book and you need to read it. It's actually on YouTube. You can listen to it there, but you should go out and read the book. You should buy the book and listen to it, or read it, I mean. Also, getting back to Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, that book basically picks up, and when he becomes Vader, then that's what we want to see. We want to see the struggles, and we've seen it in the comics, and we need to see it a little bit more forceful as things are there, and we need to see it doing well there. We need to see that the Rise of Lord Vader is basically what I call it. Well, actually, I don't call it that. That's what the name of the book is, The Rise of Darth Vader. But that was a wonderful book. There's another one called Lords of the Sith, and that was a good read with Sidious and Vader going on a journey. Anything with Darth Vader in it, I'm going to watch. And, of course, after you've seen Rogue One, that wonderful scene, then you go, the next time you see Vader is when he's fighting Obi-Wan, essentially the next lightsaber, time he has his lightsaber out, and he just looks so, whatever. But that's fine. I mean, I can overlook a few things like that, because it was the time it was made, and they didn't have, Jedi didn't jump up in the air and fly all over the place like they did in the prequels, and they could explain it away with the Force. I know they're not going to mention midi-chlorians anymore, but it kind of made sense in a way. But anyway, give me any kind of Darth Vader movie, any kind of Darth Sidious or Darth Plagueis movie. I will line up, take my money right now, I'll give it to you right now so you can make it. Okay, I want to see that. Please, the fans do too. And there are just so many other ones, like a Yoda movie. I'd like to see Yoda. I would love to see how Yoda became the most powerful Jedi ever, until Anakin came along, I guess, to an extent. He's still, some ways, more powerful. But I want to see a Yoda movie. That could be fascinating. So like I said, I saw Solo, and it was okay, but it didn't excite me. I didn't have those, like my Spidey sense, my Star Wars sense. It just wasn't there. I had it in Last Jedi and parts of it, and minus the Mary Poppins moment, which I did not like because we had no backstory for why Leia could do that. But even then, there are things I can overlook, but I don't know. I get tired of overlooking things. I still enjoyed Last Jedi. It still felt like a good movie. And I'm telling you, there's hatred out there for Lucas and for the prequels. And yeah, there were parts from that when you watch now, they are so, oh dear, I can't believe they did that. That just was silly, like Jar Jar and blah, blah, blah. And the dialogue may have been wooden, and some of Hayden Christensen's acting for what he had to work with, was not so great. But I tell you, those movies still felt resonant. They felt part of the galaxy. Solo doesn't. And I know it's a story and maybe it's outside of it, but I didn't get enough of that. Rogue One, even though it was different, still felt like Star Wars. Last Jedi just felt like kicked in the heart and punched and everything. And I get that. And that's why I don't terribly dislike what Rian Johnson did. I don't like it at all, but I think as a movie filmmaker that Rian Johnson was very courageous in what he did, but it wasn't what the fans wanted. And I've heard this said, it's a business and you've got to give the people what they want. If you have a business, if you don't service them and give them the service, that they want, they're going to go someplace else, or they're just going to not come to your business. And like it or not, it is a business. So I just want good, solid stories. Don't be afraid to bring the prequels in. And when they get to episode 9, they have to mention stuff in the prequels. Like, we all know the one unnamed planet in Rogue One was Mustafar. But I think it was a creative choice to not put Mustafar on there, because all of a sudden then it's episode 3 and we've linked the prequels. It's like they're trying to distance themselves from the prequels and make something new. That's fine. I get that. You did a great job with Force Awakens, okay? Basically, J.J. Abrams, it was kind of a retread of the original Star Wars, but you went back to practical effects, and I like that they're doing that in the newer movies and less CGI. I think it looks better. It looks more authentic. But still, you have to have that cohesiveness, and you have to bring in the prequels. You have to mention them, especially when you get to episode 9. You've got to bring it all together. So, wow, I am talking longer than I planned about Solo, but in the Star Wars universe. But I've just got to talk about the state of it. I just don't. I'm scared. I'm scared that episode 9 is not going to be everything we want. And I don't know how not to have great expectations for the movie, but I don't want to become indifferent to it. And I'm afraid there's a lot of Star Wars fans, long-term Star Wars fans, that are indifferent to it. Now, the movie is going to make money. I'm going to see it. I don't, even if everybody dies, it'll be the end. I know it's the end of the Skywalker saga. That's fine. Now, Rian Johnson is supposedly, if that holds true, getting a new trilogy with new characters. Fine. Have no problem with that. As long as he doesn't tread on anything that Star Wars has built, he could have, I know this, you got to capture time in a bottle, as the song says, and lightning in a bottle, whatever the analogy is. But I think for Star Wars fans, we need to wrap things up in episode 9. And if Abrams is helming that, and I think he already has the script, supposedly, so, we'll find out next year if the end-all be-all episode 9 is what it's supposed to be. And if any movie needs to break the $3 billion mark or more, then let it be episode 9. But bring back people we like. Integrate some of those characters. Throw me a nod to episodes, the prequels essentially, to all of them, to 1 through 3 and 4 through 6. We need the original trilogy mentioned in there. It all needs to be relevant. We need to hear the word Sith in there. Somehow I wish we could turn back the clock. We need to bring back Snoke. They killed him far too soon. Rey's parents she needs to either be a Palpatine, a Kenobi, a Skywalker, something. She has to tie into that. I don't know. So that's what the fans want. Please, Disney. I know you supposedly listen to everything and read every tweet, as one of your directors said. And please listen to your fans. If numbers are what drive you, if Solo had to suffer, and I think I almost said Ron Weasley, this is not Harry Potter, but Opie Taylor, from Andy Griffith, what's his name? Ron Howard, excuse me. And if Ron Howard says, we just gotta make sure that we service the fans, and I feel he's got a raw kind of treatment, but ultimately he's the one. He picked up a movie that they fired the original writers, let them go, whatever, and went a different direction with it. And maybe it was going to be a better movie with them. We'll never know. But Solo could have been better, and I would not stop watching anything by Ron Howard. He's still a great director, and he's got a great vision, and I applaud him for that. And I wish the fans could be happy. I want everybody to be happy. That's just who I am, but I want everybody to be happy and get along, and I want, more importantly, I want the Star Wars stories to continue. I don't mind every year going and seeing a Star Wars story. You know, these standalones are great, and tie them in. You throw a little nod to the original 9 movies, right? That's fine. That's fine. You know, Rian Johnson, go make your trilogy. Show us something new. Show us a Thrawn trilogy or something. You know, whatever. I don't know. The sky is the limit, or the stars, or whatever. The galaxy is yours to play with. Expand that galaxy. Do a Knights of the Old Republic movie. Do whatever. You know, bring in some filmmakers. I don't mind that. But J.J. Abrams, if you've got episode 9, you've got to wrap things up. Now, don't scare us with Darth Jar Jar. That would be crazy in itself. But what we really, really need is just Disney to listen to the fans. Just listen to them. If you have to have a Star Wars Celebration Summit or something, and listen to the fans, you know, go online, talk to some of the fans, you know, do a focus group, say, hey, what do you want from us? What do you want to see? Open up our imaginations. And I promise you, if you make the movie that fans can get a consensus on, which is hard with Star Wars fans, but if you can make a movie that you've done it several times before to great box office numbers and great acclaim, but if you can get a consensus of fans and give us what we want to see on the big screen, I'll promise you episode 9 will be the biggest movie ever made, and it may never get surpassed, because you're wrapping up that Star Wars saga. You know, you're wrapping up the prequels. You're wrapping up basically Anakin Skywalker's story, then the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker's story. You're wrapping that up. A father and son dynamic play into that, you know, and I'm not a hater of the prequels. They're not as good as the original, but I tell you what, Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and that would surprise some people, but I think the acting, and I think even though some of the dialogue is still not great, but I still enjoy it. And so please fascinate us with more and more of what we want to see. Please listen to the fans. And so, I don't know. Also, I want to mention the Princess Leia sequence that was CGI'd in Rogue One. And I've said this before, you know, as much as great, the Vader part towards the end was wonderful. Okay. That was a reason just to watch the movie. I can put that on a loop and watch that all day long, and I'm happy. I think they did a good job with Tarkin. Some people disagree. But even the Princess Leia thing and tying that in Rogue One was brilliant. Okay. I thought that was brilliant. Some of what they did in Solo kind of changes the scoundrel, the mysterious scoundrel, and, you know, who just wanted his paycheck and he was moving on, and, you know, he was a rambling man, as the song says. So there are some problems with Solo there, but I don't know. I don't want to be too Solo, ha ha ha, pun intended, on this episode, but I just feel like all this has been festering, and I've not had the time or opportunity to talk about it, to address some of these fans' concerns, including my own, because I'm a Star Wars fan for life, and I will always be. I'm not going to jump ship unless you just blow the entire universe up and all, but even if that works in the storyline, then great, but maybe that's episode 9, I want to be blown out of my seat, not literally, but, you know, I just want to be have my emotions on the floor. I mean, my heart ripped out and said, oh my gosh. And I want to be crying, man, tears all over the place when I watch episode 9. That's what I want. I can't express it enough. So You've got to pull out all the stops. You've got to integrate everything for the prequels into all of them. You've got to do it all. And I think at this point, Disney, you have to. And if you're listening, anybody from Disney's listening, I have respect for you guys. Look what you've done with Marvel. Look at Infinity War, almost $2 billion. Look at the wonderful universe that Marvel has built. And it's still under the Disney umbrella, but you guys have promoted it. You couldn't have promoted it better. And so many great movies, all different directors, different writers, blah, blah, blah. But you kept the continuity going. We lost that with Star Wars. We need that continuity, okay? And everybody makes a misstep. We all make bad decisions from time to time, but it's learning from those decisions and it's doing the right thing. And in this case, it's giving the fans what they want. So please adhere to that. I think at this point, I want to see Luke. If he has to be a Force Ghost, by all means, Force Ghost Luke, Force Ghost Yoda, I think is going to be in episode 9. I hear that, I can't think of his name right now. Billy D. Williams. Thank you. He's training for Lando Calrissian. I don't need to see him come in and die, but if he does, but that's not enough. I need more than just Lando showing up, and I get the tie-in because he was at the solo premiere and that's wonderful. Okay. Bring him on board. I'm all for it, but I need more. I need more than just Lando in there. Okay. I need to bring it all full circle. You've got to wrap everything up in a nice, wonderful Star Wars package, bow and everything, whatever else. Please just leave us on the floor saying, oh my gosh, that was the greatest Star Wars film ever. Empire, what? I don't know if you could ever top Empire, but go back and look at what made those movies work and talk to people that are even more versed than I am and give them what they want. Okay. So, I don't want a CGI Carrie Fisher. I don't. Please fight and resist that urge. I know that you said, Disney, that you haven't or you're not going to. So that's fine. Keep it that way. She can die. If Princess Leia has to die, let it be off screen or, let it be a pivotal mission and where she dies. They honestly should have let, in Last Jedi, they should have let her die and not do the Mary Poppins moment. She could have died in that movie and it would have been fine. We would have lost Luke and Leia. That would have been crazy. But we understand that Carrie Fisher passed away in real life, and had she not, of course, there'd be probably no issue. We'd still have a problem with the Mary Poppins moment that she did, but I don't know. Anyway, so I've got to get off. I've been talking a long time about Solo. I'm going to run through real quick and wrap this up. And let's talk about the other reason that we're here. This is a summer movie preview. So if you've been listening for a long time here, you'll say, oh my gosh, when's he going to stop talking about Solo? But if you're a Star Wars fan, you totally get what I'm saying. And I'm trying my best to give Solo a second chance. And it's doing respectable box office by any other movie. It's doing good, if not great. But it's just not getting that return fans. It's not getting people like me that sees it 5 times or whatever, that love Star Wars so much that they've grown up with it. And we need that present. You need that kind of return business. That's what makes movies like Titanic and Avatar and all these movies and Force Awakens and even Last Jedi and stuff like that. It makes those movies the return business and the word of mouth. So let's look at what's coming to theaters, and in our bit of a summer movie preview here, we're talking about a movie I've been waiting years and years and years and years, and I know my friend Anthony, he feels the same way, my friend Steven. We've all been waiting for Incredibles 2, and it's coming out June 15th, which would be this weekend as of the recording of this. So super excited for that. And basically it's almost 2 weeks from now, but at this point, but coming out June 22nd, 2018, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I think it's going to open big, maybe bigger than Solo. I honestly believe it's going to be bigger than Solo. I don't know if they can top Jurassic World. We'll see. But my friend Richard, he has always been, one of his main franchises has been Jurassic Park. He grew up with Jurassic Park. I did too. I remember the first one. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's like when, and I said this to him, it's like when Christopher Reeve, when I was a young kid, they said, you will believe a man can fly when Superman, the movie came out. And yeah, it looks hokey now because of the limitations of the special effects back then. But I remember seeing the first Jurassic Park movie and saying, wow, I believe these are real dinosaurs. And Spielberg is such a genius. He is such a genius because the Jurassic Park movies were great. Now, as they went on, I wasn't like, by the third movie, I think I was kind of like, oh, okay, a little bit of fatigue here. And in Jurassic World, I wasn't expecting it to do so well. And I enjoyed Jurassic World. I mean, there are problems with it. You know, we talked about it on the podcast on the previous episode. You can look at geekhomeworld.libsyn.com and check it out, or on iTunes, Geek Homeworld, and you can see us talk about that. It actually may have been, to be honest, it may have been on previous podcast, my Digital Man Cave podcast. But anyway, that being said, I've always liked Jurassic Park, and this Jeff Goldblum's back. He's always that kind of comic relief, sensible person. He's in a lot of great movies like Independence Day, etc. You know Jeff Goldblum. And he was in Thor Ragnarok, which I rewatched the other day, and it's such a great movie. A movie that was partly filmed here in Savannah, coming out July 6th, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Looking forward to that. I'm not super excited for this, but I am because it's a Marvel movie, and Ant-Man's possibly going to play a big role because he wasn't in Infinity War, just like Hawkeye. So it's going to be interesting to see what Ant-Man and the Wasp are bringing to the table when we get to the next Avengers movie. So, yeah, Star Wars is going to be competing with Avengers next year, so that's going to be interesting. And as much as I love Avengers, it's almost perfect as Infinity War was. Star Wars, you got to up your game because you need to be burying everybody in the dust, and it's going to be such a great year. Now, some other movies that we're kind of keeping an eyeball on, and there's probably some I've forgotten. So this is not at all a comprehensive list. It's mainly the big ones, the ones that I might be interested in. I think our Geek Homeworld community might be. On July 4th, Independence Day, no pun intended, you know, the movie. We've got the First Purge coming out. Then we have Dwayne Johnson in Skyscraper on July 13th. And I kind of think I enjoy The Rock's movies. I really do. And I think it's going to be a fun movie. It's going to be unbelievable. That's what it's supposed to be. But it's a summer popcorn kind of movie. Hopefully it's really good. Now, Friday, July 20th, we've got The Equalizer 2 with Denzel Washington. I thoroughly enjoyed the original one. And it's based loosely or whatever on the original TV show back in, I think, the 80s. So, The Equalizer 2, I enjoyed the first one, so I'm excited for that. We're looking at July 27th, a movie that I've seen the trailers, and I'm almost got trailer fatigue at this point, but I saw a newer trailer for it, but Mission Impossible Fallout. So I've always been a Tom Cruise fan, and I hear that Top Gun 2 is moving along, and Val Kilmer is going to reprise his role in that. So that's coming sometime in the future, hopefully. And Tom Cruise is attached to it, as far as I know. And he's a wonderful actor. And Mission Impossible Fallout, I'm excited. This is the movie that has the mustache for Henry Cavill. So, that's why I couldn't shave it off. It was for this movie. But I hope that doesn't have any bad implications, if that's the word I'm looking for. But Mission Impossible Fallout, it shouldn't. Mission Impossible Fallout is coming out July 27th. And also the same day, animation, but Teen Titans Go to the movies. And that's the name of it. I don't know how I feel about that. I like Teen Titans. So really, that's through the end of July. I looked at August, and there really isn't much right now that's on the calendar that blew me away. But so those are kind of the movies that we're looking for. And we'll talk later on in more depth about some of these movies, but thank you for bearing with me here on the episode. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a little bit longer episode than we usually do. And you can check us out at Geek Homeworld on Twitter. Let us know what you think. You can look at, or listen to, you can look at on YouTube, Geek Homeworld, and we hit that subscribe button. I've not had time to really work on the channel. There's some videos on there. They're not great. Okay, I'm admitting that. But I'm learning the video aspect of it. I was always an audio podcast guy, and now I'm going to be a radio guy. So you can check out my radio show Saturdays 4 to 5 p.m. on www.wruu.org. So that's my Savannah on film, behind the scenes in the movie industry. No, it really is. It's going to be a show, a live radio show that I'm doing, and thankful for that. So I'm going to totally enjoy that. But anyway, check us out, Geek Homeworld, on Twitter. Let us know what you think. Thank you for all the positive feedback. We're on YouTube. If you go there, hit subscribe, be nice, okay? And I hope you enjoyed this summer season. We've got a lot more planned coming up. And I thank you very much for listening. I am Ed, a.k.a. SavageTechman, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. Goodbye. See you at the movies, I guess. So, take care. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow and interact with us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes and leave a review, subscribe to us on YouTube, read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.